thanks to the Catholic Foundation, who's put together a great panel for us today. A successful entrepreneur and nonprofit leader, Aimee Griffiths, has built an impressive record of accomplishment in her career to date. Aimee joined MoneyGram International in January 2018 as head of the MoneyGram Foundation, ultimately expanding her role to head of social impact in 2020. She currently oversees the development and implementation of global philanthropy, social responsibility, and corporate citizenship programs for the company. Originally a restaurant owner-operator, Aimee transitioned into the nonprofit sector in 2012 and worked as Director of Alumni Relations for Ursuline Academy of Dallas and Director of Development for Rainbow Days. Just prior to joining MoneyGram, Aimee was Chief Operating Officer at Cafe Momentum, a nonprofit restaurant that provides life skills training and social services for youth exiting the juvenile detention system. So, great background. Sure, that'd be a wonderful conversation over coffee sometime. And also we have with us Bob Baillargeon, who was born and raised in Montreal and moved to Texas in 1962 as a pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies organization. After his baseball career, he entered the automobile industry, quickly becoming general sales manager for Roger Meyer Cadillac in Dallas. In 1980, Bob and his wife Margaret opened Belarjan Ford in Richardson, where they, along with their 3 children, successfully ran the business for the next 20 years. They incorporated in their sales philosophy and their staff training the beliefs and values by which they personally lived. Bob has always been willing to share his gifts with others, serving numerous organizations, which includes a term as chairman of the Richardson Chamber of Commerce, the support of inner city Catholic schools, active involvement in several pro-life activities, Jesuit College Preparatory School, Montserrat Jesuit Retreat House, and the Catholic Foundation, where he was a board member for 9 years. He continues to inspire others by his example. Michael George is our moderator today. He is no stranger to this organization. He is Senior Development Officer with the Catholic Foundation. For more than 21 years, Michael has been responsible for developing and cultivating donor relationships, assisting individuals, families, and organizations with donor-advised funds, designated funds, and permanent endowments at the Foundation. Michael is a member of the Dallas Council of Charitable Gift Planners, the Dallas Estate Planning Council, the Estate Planning Council of North Texas, and is past president of the Dallas chapter of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. Michael earned his Certified Fundraising Executive designation in 2005. And just a reminder to everyone to please place your questions in the Q&A section, and we will have time for that at the very end. So take it away, Michael.
Sure, appreciate it. It's an honor to be with you all today. And Bob Baillargeon and Aimee Griffiths have been friends of the Catholic Foundation for a long time. And we are honored to have them here today to talk a little bit about their family and their family philosophy in terms of philanthropy, how it has impacted their own personal philanthropy. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And let's start with a question for the both of you. Do you have a philosophy or a principle that guides your charitable giving? So Bob, let's start with you.
Well, it started very young as far as I'm concerned, because back, was when I was just out of, my philosophy basically, I don't want to get ahead of myself, is to try to help and be aware of people around me, and I've come from a very modest background, so I'm sensitive to those issues, and I like to help people. It's a lot of fun to give, so that's basically my philosophy.
Awesome. Aimee?
Great. I don't really know. Is it in the notes that that this is my father? I'm not sure. Is there different names?
We haven't announced that already. Aimee Griffiths is Bob Baillargeon, Bob and Margaret Baillargeon's daughter.
Just realizing
so we're a team, okay?
Yes, we're a team. Anyway, And so a lot of what his philosophy is informs my own, and that's the reason why I mentioned that. But then also having a background in nonprofit development, both as a volunteer and then, as you heard, a couple mentions of some different jobs that I've had in the past, just a keen awareness of the story that's behind the ask, and an appreciation for those people making the ask, knowing how hard it is to raise the money, but also just an understanding of the strategy and the structure behind a project or an organization's mission.
That's great. Bob, do you have anything to add to that?
She's my daughter.
Perfect, duly noted.
There you go.
So as you mentioned, Bob, you were born and raised in Montreal, and I actually have kind of a two-part question. Number one is, to your knowledge, is charitable giving in Canada different than it is in the States? And also, was charitable giving encouraged in your household?
Well, I actually left Montreal. I was only just out of high school. I was 18 years old, so I was not a part of the, basically other than going to high school and grade school, I was not a part of Canada's charitable giving, so I really don't know that much about that answer. So,
Okay.
So what's the second part of the question?
Was charitable giving encouraged in your household growing up?
Gee, we were so poor. I mean, I came from a very modest background, like I said before, and we were so poor that we needed things, but we never got help from anybody. We did it our own. My father and mother worked hard. So when I became there was in baseball, I was offered a $12,000 baseball contract out of high school, and so at that time I wanted to give that money to my parents, so we could move out of the little apartment that we lived in. And so I gave that money to my parents, and I left Montreal with only $75 in my pocket. And I told my parents, go use that money for a down payment on a house. We didn't even own a house back then. So I was driven to help people even then at that early age. So that's how it all came about.
Awesome. Well, did you have at particular points in your life, whether it was in your baseball career, your automobile dealer career, or your career in automotive sales, did you have any mentors who were particularly helpful in terms of prompting how you look at philanthropy?
Actually, my main mentor was Roger Meyer of Roger Meyer Cadillac. He was a very generous man. He gave a lot to the community. He helped SMU. He helped a lot of. I mean, he was always available for me to talk to. I mean, since I didn't have, my father lived in Montreal, but Roger Meyer became kind of my father. He was the one that I relied on to give advice and help. So he was very helpful.
What was the sign you told me about that you had in your office from Roger Meyer that you still have to this day?
Well, God be at my side in my commerce, in my everyday dealings. So he always told me that whatever you do, it's like you don't have to go to church on Sunday. You could go to church every day in the work that you do, and all the transactions that you make, and all the phone calls that you make, and all of the meetings that you have with people. That's church. That's how we bring God into our lives that way, by reaching out to others. So that was a great message for me as a young man back then.
It's a great philosophy for sure. So Aimee, growing up, you had this father who has been charitably minded since his youth. So was charitable giving or giving back something that was encouraged in your household?
It was both mom and dad. And my mother passed away in 2006, but my whole life I learned from their example of pairing your financial impact with service by far. And then of course I was fortunate to be able to go to Ursula Academy, whose motto is "Serviam," I will serve. So it's always about getting in and seeing how you can help, not only with your finances, but also what they would always say is, how do you pair your hearts and hands with what you give financially? And that's kind of been a philosophy that I carry forward based on them always, offering a volunteer opportunity, wanting to get engaged, wanting to serve the organization as well as provide support.
That's awesome. Very good. Well, and one of the places where, if you've been in Dallas for a while, one of the places where most of our viewers are likely to have known Bob Baillargeon and Aimee Griffith was from their Ford dealership, Belarjan Ford. So, you had that for 20 years, and I'm just curious how your values, particularly your generosity, how that was expressed in your work.
Well, first I want to say thank you to all those people that work with me at the Ford dealership. All those salespeople that sold cars, all those technicians that worked on cars, all those people that work in offices, and those people that work in the parts department and serving others. Without them, I would have never been in a position to have the kind of funds that I can be generous with. So I didn't do it. They did it for me, and I just want to, I guess, publicly thank them for that. It just was really, and so we looked at it as a family. We told people that our technicians, look, you're not just repairing a car, you're just not putting a water pump in a car, you're helping somebody, a mom carpool, you're helping someone going to his job or her job. So we added a lot of meaning to their work, and same thing with the selling of a vehicle. We made sure that it was a pleasant experience. We wanted it to be a pleasant experience for them so that we could, and so, like everybody here that's listening or watching, it's your work is a mission. I mean, that's your mission in life, to do this. And it's a very worthy mission, especially of what you're doing and trying to help people find some charitable giving. I mean, that's a very worthwhile mission. So I compliment each and every one of you. But without the people that I worked with for 20 years, I couldn't be here today.
Let me jump in too, and in that regard, one thing that was very important for Mom and Dad, and as a family led by Mom and Dad, is that they wanted to pour into our employee family as much as they poured into their biological family. Every week they would have meetings with the leadership of our dealership, and they were called values and vision meetings. And this was in the 80s and 90s, when it wasn't necessarily, now it's all, I'm knowing from my work and social impact and CSR and all that kind of thing. Now it's something that people are trying to harness and create, but it came from such an organic and authentic place of Mom and Dad wanting to pour in of themselves into the people that we work with. And we talked about, how do you add this deeper meaning to how do you look at your work? How do you look at what you do every day? How do you look at the people you work with and want to impart the same kind of value that you share, and really the service aspect. There's no doubt that, coming from the service aspect of what you do in the car business, good stories and bad stories about just car salesmen or whatever, but it is a service. It's a necessary service. And then making that have deeper meaning, and making it a mission, and making that a vocation is what they would call it. It's your vocation, and how do you really harness that? So it ties into your work, for sure.
Yeah, and another thing too that was very influential in my life is that basically I was taught in a boys' school by the Brothers of the Sacred Heart, and they were they were a good guide for me in trying to establish my life. And so they always would help you to give meaning as far as your Christian values. And the one story that really appealed to me a lot when I was a young boy is that, give and it will be given to you. And so I really believe in my faith that the rule of 10, you give something, and sometimes God gives you 10 times more in return. It's amazing to me as I when I went through life, like if we stepped up and did something for somebody. We happened, the following month was a great month in terms of our business was concerned. So we had a great month. I remember one time we bought a ticket, a raffle ticket, and we won $10,000 on that raffle ticket, but Margaret's sister really needed some help. And so we gave the money to her, and the next month we had a record month again. It's just amazing to me, if someone believes in the return, being a businessman, that's a great return. 10 times on your dollar, I mean, you can't beat that. So maybe I was motivated by gain. I don't think so. That's not the case.
You certainly didn't do it anticipating you were going to get
No, but it
turns
happened.
out that way.
Yeah,
yes.
it's just amazing. So it's crazy.
Reinforced an already desire to be hopeful, for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Did you guys create, okay, you have a work life and you have a home life, right? So did you create a separation between the two, or did the two kind of bleed into one another?
Well, first of all, she has a brother and a sister. So we had Margaret, my first wife. We were married for 44 years, and we lost her to cancer in 2006. It was a difficult situation for our family, but it brought us together. And so we talked about this all the time.
Oh, it was all the time. Yeah, family. I remember when I was engaged and my husband started coming to our family dinners. He's like, "You guys talk business all the time," but it was infused. It was kind of when they talk about work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
I learned from an early age the best work life, and I think we're all seeing this in this virtual environment. It fuses together in a way that's seamless, and that's the balance. It kind of, you can do it all at once and still not neglect anything. So yeah, it was all the time.
Yeah, you kind of do what you need to do.
Yeah, and I think too, because the employees were part of a bigger part of our family, there were often times that we would have concerns, or how can we help this person, or how can we help support this person in a way that's going to be helpful to them, or we would talk about the bigger family too as part of our discussions.
One of the reasons that, not reasons, but Margaret, my wife, would say, Bob is mashed potatoes. I am just mashed potatoes, and she's whipped cream, so she can do a lot more things. So Aimee is both mashed potatoes and whipped cream. So it makes it some very interesting conversations at the dinner table. When I'm just so black and white.
You're analytical.
Yeah, and then she's a lot more butterfly type thing.
Butterfly type thing?
Whatever. Keep in mind that
I can add fluff. I've got some fluff.
English is my second language, so be patient, folks. I speak French, so it's crazy.
That's great. I'm going to remember that one. But well, that leads me to a really, really good question. I'm dying to know. Talk about the social piece of it and being outgoing. Who was responsible for the commercials that you had? Because a lot of people, they're going to remember, my mom, my sister Aimee, those types of commercials. Who was responsible for those?
Well, first of all, and she'll answer that question, but
Yeah.
first of all, my analytical mind says, people really don't believe price when you advertise price and the best deals and all that kind of stuff. So I said, now wait a minute, we are a family, so let's promote family. Let's promote friendliness. And we also figured out that women have a great say in the purchase and in the service of a vehicle. So we geared it more towards the family, and especially women. And so we made it comfortable for them to come on the service drive. And so we promoted our commercials, basically said, come, go ahead.
It was approachable. Yeah, we tried to make, and the point of those conversations, it's funny because you probably did this intentionally, but it leads into those family conversations where a lot of the meat and content of those commercials came out of family conversations of how do we get this point across, and we'd be like, oh, that's actually a good thing we probably want to share with people, and inviting people to be part of our family conversations about why we do what we do and why it's not just a transactional experience, so that it's more of building a relationship with people and appealing more to women and families, mainly because mom was a co-owner with you, and that was unheard of back in the 80s, of having a woman owner, co-owner, and oftentimes she was left out of some of the bigger meetings at the time. Nowadays it's a lot different, but at the time she would be left out of big meetings, with the corporate folks, because they thought she was just a spouse, and she was right on there making on the front lines. And the fact that they had such a great partnership at a time that it was not the norm, I think is why we were successful and why we spoke to people.
Yeah, and what Bobby would say in the commercials, or you would say, you know, ask for my mom, ask for my dad, or
Yeah.
my sister Amy.
Yeah, and my brother
so,
Bobby.
So we also had, well,
There's an authenticity to it, and I think people heard that because it came from an authentic place. It came from us just
There you go.
wanting to get that word out and that messaging out.
Absolutely. And, you know, your business was your vocation
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. How did that translate when you were looking to hire people? You know, did that work into your hiring process as well, in terms of the type of person you were looking for?
Well, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. We wanted to make sure that the people would represent our values, and so we.
And also there was an openness to bringing people in that were maybe not traditionally a new hire package, right? Did they have the right drive? Did they have, the skill set didn't necessarily need to match.
Amy
but
was in
there
charge
were-
of payroll, so she
Yeah.
knows all of that.
I was in charge of I did the payroll. But it wasn't, they would hire, we would encourage hiring of less than a very specific skill set, line items on a job description, but a passion for wanting to connect with people, a passion for wanting to grow and develop, and an openness to really challenging themselves. Because it's a challenging business. It is. I always say, if you want to hire somebody that really knows how to work hard, you clearly want to do retail, car business is very hard because you're getting somebody at the last, nobody wants to bring their car in for service. That's never a good, happy thing. So you're dealing with that kind of thing. And then it's very hard to work in a grocery store. Those are the two really hard.
And we also said, the basically thing, we brought it down to treat people the way you would like to be treated. And that's a simple message, and that would come across very, very succinctly at the time. We would
Yes.
say, look, we won't have a problem if you treat people the way you would like to be treated.
That was the core value.
That was the core value of our business, basically, so it made it easy. If they didn't believe in that, or if we saw their actions contrary to our philosophy, then we would say, hey, how do you feel about this particular work that you did? How do you feel about this particular transaction? Would you be happy if you were on the receiving end of it? No. Well, then why did you do it? You know, so then that was kind of a warning to them to get back on track. If not, we'd have to let them go.
That's a great answer. Switching gears just a little bit, you both have always been very giving people. Are there any gifts in particular that stand out in your mind that were really, really special for you, and what made them so important? So Amy, let's start with you on that one.
For me, probably the gifts that we're working on right now, and that is funding scholarships at both Ursuline and at Jesuit. And the one at Ursuline is in Mom's name, and the one at Jesuit is in Dad's name, because it's an endowed scholarship. And I'm very passionate about creating something that will give indefinitely, that will be around and honor their legacy in perpetuity. And I think that's something that I'm particularly excited about, because that will go live beyond us. And I understand, having done a lot of event fundraising, how critical it is to do sponsorships and also general annual funds and those things. But this is just something in which we support those too, but this is particularly meaningful and significant for my family.
Yeah, I like to give, obviously support that. I like to give also to those to those organizations, especially the inner city schools, where I grew up in an inner city school, and you can't afford a private education. People can't afford a private education, so I like to work with the inner city schools and try to raise funds for them to provide that help to those people. Also, we're very pro-life driven. We think every baby is important. The life of every baby is important. So we like to support those organizations, and we have for many years do that. We do that. And so those are obviously the schools are very important. And also my grandchildren. I happen to have 10 grandchildren, and I have 3 and the fourth great grandchild was born 2 days ago. So I do have a responsibility to my family, to my kids and my grandkids and their education and what they're doing. So I'm just so blessed. I'm thankful.
You've also been very supportive of whatever because we grew up in a very philanthropic household, you've always been very supportive of the various things that we've wanted to be, that whenever we would give, you would also match that or give more or whatever. You'd find out we were supporting some kind of an organization, you always would show up with some kind of support for that as well. So that's always good.
Yeah, but I think it's important as a parent to try to include your children in your giving, because that starts their life showing them how to share with the gifts that you have. So by just sharing their toys in the very beginning and all those things are very important. As a parent, your responsibility is to also get those children to understand the need of others and to be able to give.
That's terrific. So, Aimee, in a very real way, your parents, have been your mentors your whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anybody else who was really, really important to you, or an institution that was really important to you in terms of, developing your core?
There's two, and in addition to my family, Ursuline, of course, because that whole service and also developing and instilling a confidence in me as a young woman, there really no place better than Ursuline to do that, especially as it is within the framework of the Catholic teachings. So you have a firm foundation of faith and understanding of where you are and how you operate in the world. That it's not about you; it's about how you can serve and how you can be do good work for others. And then also, I was very fortunate to have a long period of time with Junior League of Dallas, which is also empowering women to in promoting volunteerism and engagement in your community. Was with the Junior League for 11 years. The last year I was honored to be able to serve as president. So I got a great opportunity to see and work with nonprofits, anywhere between 30 to 40 nonprofits that we worked with every year, really get an inside look. It was what really drove my desire to move into the nonprofit space.
But you do keep in mind the Cafe Momentum, since you were hands-on for several years.
Yeah.
Working with those juveniles at were incarcerated. Yeah. You told me a lot of personal stories about them and how much of an impact that you had on their lives. I was real proud of that.
Yes, and Rainbow Days too, working with the homeless children that really have no power over the circumstance in which they were born in, and they deserve all the opportunities to build their resilience and knowledge. And then of course the kids at Cafe Moment. Yeah, I guess I've had the opportunity and been very fortunate to have some really meaningful experiences, more than I guess I can count on.
Well, you certainly have had numerous encounters like that, which is absolutely wonderful. Aimee, one of the things that you mentioned the importance of was giving that outlives you, which is one of the reasons why the scholarships are so important. And I think that was probably, if you will, in terms of the three of us getting to know each other, it's probably the basis of a lot of the relationship with the Catholic Foundation in terms of our ability to help support your philanthropy, not just now, but down through the years.
That's a good commercial, Michael.
So,
it's authentic. It's an authentic
That's very good.
I appreciate the imprimatur, Bob. Thank you.
Well, you're very helpful to our family to be able to show us the different ways of doing it. There was those charitable funds that we established were, they're very significant, and it was to people like you guys that helped us do that. So we thank you.
Well, it's our honor.
I couldn't afford to have a foundation of my own.
Well, you can probably tell that Bob likes to bust me wherever he possibly can. And I appreciate that. We have a pretty good time together. But as we draw our time together to a close, Bob, something that you said a long time ago really stuck with me. Not just said, but you said and you did it. And it was really kind of a visual in terms of how you personally share the blessings that you've been given in your life. I was wondering if you would share that with others.
All right, Michael. Someone told me a long time ago that it's very important to go through life with your hands open. So that means you're available to help people that need something. They can go ahead and reach into your hand, or you can give to people. You know what? Never want to close your hands, because when you close your hands, God can't give you any more gifts or any more blessings. Because if you keep your hands open, the rule of 10 applies, Michael, right? Mm-hmm. Someone takes a piece of candy over here, well then you'll end up with 10 candies. How did that happen? Because your hands are open. If you give a candy and you close your hands, you can't get it anymore. So I think it's very important in my life to go through life understanding, hey, keep your hands open, be open to people, and then you'll be open for the more blessings that you'll have.
So through your hands flow blessings to others.
And blessings to me too.
Absolutely.
But I don't do it for that.
No.
Well, I forget who said, I think it was probably like Ralph Waldo Emerson or something like that, is no man stands as tall as when he bends down to help another.
Very nice.
And both of you throughout your entire lives have really been open to God's blessings and certainly open to helping others. And at the Catholic Foundation, I can just speak for us personally, we are honored to have you as a part of our family, because it is very much a family here. And I can't think of a better way to close this portion of the meeting than with that visual you provided. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you,
Really
thank you,
appreciate it.
thank you.
So having said that, hopefully there are just a boatload of questions that you all have for Bob and for Aimee.
We do have a couple, Michael. Our friend Todd Healy asks, how are you getting the next generation involved in charitable giving? And you might answer this not only for your personal family, but which are your thoughts for just in general, that next generation, the younger generation, how to get those folks involved?
Well, okay, do you want to answer, man?
Oh yeah, I've got I guess I'm the youngest of the family, so I've got the youngest kids. My son is a junior in college, and my daughter is a senior at Ursuline. And how we get them involved is all through all the volunteerism. That's the easiest way to get them involved, is get the volunteerism going, which, and that means whenever there's something going on at the school, you jump in with them and you do that together. Also finding ways to identify and bringing them along with it. Looking at the ways in the community where there's need. What is appealing to them? You may have your kids that may be crazy about animals. Well, let's talk about the ASPCA. Let's look at what is it that resonates with you at a young age. Or let's say they really are passionate about art. Well, there's a big need in there from the arts community of supporting the arts. There's volunteerism. Let's get them involved and engaged. And then that comes from a natural place of desire to sustain something that's important to them. So I would say volunteerism is the best way, because they don't have money, and then it can build into saving the allowance or doing fundraising. Maggie used to, she was very passionate about homeless children, partly because of me working at Rainbow Days at the time. She would say, all of my birthday presents, I want stuff for the kids, or they did a summer camp, I want, just please don't bring me presents, bring flip-flops and swimsuits for the homeless kids at the camp, and those kinds of things. So those are easy ways where they feel like they've made a difference. So that's how I would suggest it.
Yeah, I think it did help for my other two children's family and my grandchildren. They raised.
They did very similar, yeah.
Very similar.
Which is how we had it too. That's how we were raised.
Because they always accompanied us whenever we went and did the charitable things with your mother and I. So,
yeah.
So you're always tagged along.
Yeah, and I think the key is finding what is it they, at an early age, they have things that are really they're passionate about, and kind of making that match for them.
Awesome, that's terrific. And I can tell you just institutionally, in terms of the Catholic Foundation, when we're working with individuals to establish, whether it's a donor advised fund or a permanent endowment, we always ask about their children, and if they have a desire to involve their children who can serve as, for example, in terms of a permanent endowment, can serve as successor advisors to that type of fund or to that type of an arrangement, and thus carry that philanthropy to the next generation, because their parents, in general, all of the people that we work with, they have really modeled philanthropy for their kids, so this is a way to keep them involved even after they're gone. Does that help?
That's great, thank you. We've got another question for you, also from Todd Healy. What advice do you have for professional advisors who work with families like yours? What advice would you give Michael and others who are in that space about how can they best serve you as donors?
Take your best shot, Bob.
Well, obviously, an awareness is very important. It's very important that you could be partnered with them, and their willingness to partner with you as a person. And also trust is very important, and getting to know me and my family is critical, so that I would feel comfortable in having them help me with my philanthropy. Trust is critical, obviously. I think that's...
Yeah, and in the same way, taking the time, which you all know from working in this industry, trying to identify what is it that moves that person. Same way with the children, finding out what is it that they're passionate. Michael has, over the years, has really had those ongoing conversations and is keenly aware of what motivates, what you're passionate about and what you really feel is worthwhile. And same with us. I mean, I think, and with all the families. So
I think the key also is listening.
Yeah.
I mean, you really Michael is a good listener. Listening is critical, so that you can. A lot of times people wait till you're finished talking so they can talk. But listening is critical. So that would be my...
Kind of part counselor, part social worker, part advisor.
There you go. Part friend, good golfer.
All those things.
All those things, great answer. Thank you. Good questions, Todd. Anything else, Anna?
Another one, when you're looking at, say, a new organization to support, when you're evaluating that, do you take more the advice of the advisor, like Michael suggesting something, and you trust him, as you talked about trust, or are you wanting to go physically to that location to talk to the recipients, the students, pet the animals, or whatever it is? I mean, do you want to physically go to that space, feel and touch and smell and all that, or are you just trusting your advisor? Are you trusting your fellow board member who's suggesting it? Are you trusting your family member who's saying, hey, support this great cause?
I think you got to be able to invest in it, to know what's going on. I don't think anybody's in their right mind. We're really just well, maybe people do. I don't know.
It's a spectrum, though.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's kind of it's not just those two those two sides of the spectrum. There's things in the middle, like being an invite. There's times I've been moved as a guest at somebody's table at a banquet, and I'm like, wow, this is a great. And then you learn more, and then so it could happen lots of different ways. Of course, the advisor knows and can make suggestions, but then I think for us, we've typically gone and then done a little bit more digging. And you also, of course, you all know that the big thing too is, where are your friends and the people that you respect? Where do they put their support behind? And I think that also is influential.
And we turn to people like Michael, and you can tell us how to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Better structure.
So
yeah.
How to structure it and say, hey, Michael, we want to help this particular organization. What's the best way to do that? And so he gives me advice and gives me direction as to how to do that.
And inevitably, I'm sure there's clients too that that aren't as in tune with the.
Everybody's different,
everybody's
right?
different.
Everybody has different.
But in terms of your personal philanthropy, where you put your money is also, you're throwing your time and your talents behind it as well.
No doubt. I mean, it's very important to visit the schools. It's very important to get involved with. Aimee serves on the board at Jesuit, so she's involved, and so all my kids are involved. Bobby is a graduate of Jesuit, and he also is involved in a lot of things too. So my daughter Aimee, Deanne also is involved in the Right to Life movement in Austin. So it's all we get involved.
We get lots of feedback on opportunities to give.
Okay.
We're all over the place.
I know.
Good answer. Anna?
Okay, we have another one. How about advice for attorneys, CPAs, and other financial advisors working with families like yours?
Wow, that's too deep for me.
But it's what advice for
I think
well, we
it
all
goes-
have our own attorney.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it goes back to listening and
Yeah.
trusting and all of that. I would think. I don't know how to answer that.
I think the thing that is to make sure that the village you're putting together to make this happen are in communication with one another. So that our investment person has a direct line to Michael to kind of get insight, and everybody, and then the attorney is also very aware and making CPA, like everybody has to be part of the village and know who they are, who each other are, distinct but linked in a way of support to kind of everybody pitches in to make sure it's structured properly.
I can also tell you just from a professional perspective that one of the things that I really like to see, whether it's a CPA or an attorney, a wealth manager, I like to see the fact that they know their clients well enough to plumb not only the family connections and what's important in terms of you and your kids, but also to take a look at your passions. And in this particular case, your charitable passions, and ensure that those passions, in whatever form, that they are represented in a holistic plan. I think that that's very important. And in cases where maybe if they needed a little bit more color, certainly reaching out to a philanthropic advisor who knows, if you will, that particular territory is something that, if they're open to that, it can be very important in terms of fleshing out what is really important to a family.
I agree.
Anna?
That is all of the questions that we have in the chat, but I would like to, if anyone wants to unmute at this time and ask your questions or can have any other exchanges of wisdom, love to hear from you guys.
Quiet group.
I'd like to know, when y'all do get together, is the whole family invited to the conversation when you're talking about family philanthropy, or is it spouses uninvited, or who's invited to the table?
Yeah, spouses are part of it for sure. That's always yeah. But it's not like it happens again just organically, like when we all get together, which hasn't been as frequently because of COVID, obviously, but it's always part of the conversation. What are you, I saw that you are into this, or how is that board service going, or how's that project going, and I inevitably have some kind of random global thing that I like to talk about from my work, and so there's always that discussion of what's going on, what's interesting. Is there something I'll know my sister or my brother is leading the charge in some kind of project or event and want to support that kind of thing, or even their kids. So it kind of everybody kind of keeps everybody in contact.
Yeah,
That kind of family.
the dynamics of the family has changed because,
Yeah.
Since your mom passed away, we don't have a meeting where everybody gets together and say,
Yeah.
what we're going to give now. I think we're all fractured.
Well, and also it's the age.
Yeah, what age? Yeah.
Yeah. Because everybody's got their own families.
Yeah, you got your own family, you got your own deal. So you have your own little meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Your sister, your brother have their own little meetings, and they do that at the dinner table, I'm sure. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's no longer. I'm no longer in charge, okay? It's passed on, it's over, so that's the way
But we
it
do
is.
hit you up for supportive things, so that's still.
Okay, so they include me. That's very good.
Aimee, with Money Grant Foundation, do you
Yeah.
travel a lot, and how has that informed
Pre-COVID.
How does
Yeah.
that inform your view of philanthropy?
It's become a lot, I was having done the junior league work and then working in the nonprofit space in Dallas, I felt real confident about my handle on things that were going on in the North Texas area. But when I joined MoneyGram, it's basically you just shoot up to have a global view of, and it's overwhelming, the need. And the work, it's awe-inspiring, the work that's being done by organizations with very little. Knowing that for $10,000 that you can build 3 schools in Myanmar. I mean, 3 schools that will be around for 20, 30 years that are hurricane resistant. It really gives you a different perspective of a bathroom remodel, of what you put, like it just, it really does change your perspective. And then being able to go into these places and see just the work at hand, and it's humbling because it's overwhelming because there's so much need. And I urge everybody, if you've got clients that you're working with, please take, have that discussion on the global space, because there is need, and they will, so little goes so far in some of these organizations. So it's a little trickier because you have to have, country equivalent. Sometimes they're not 501c3 registered, but sometimes they are. I thank you for bringing that up. I just urge people to keep that in mind in their charitable thoughts.
Really appreciate you sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And we really, really appreciate the both of you. You all are great friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Anna?
I think that is all the questions we have for today, but I do invite you guys to stick around. We're going to have some social time after our meeting, and just thank you, Michael, Aimee, and Bob. We really appreciate you sharing and inspiring us as the current and next generation of people working in the space of nonprofit fundraising and helping clients. And we want you all to keep it being generous and sharing on that with the next generation. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it.
A pleasure. This was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.